Hi, everybody. Welcome to Life Stories Podcast, People Helping People. I'm Shara Goswick, your host. Today on the podcast, I talked to Phil Barth. Phil is an author and a keynote speaker, and he is traveling the world teaching people how to deal with stress. He does it with humor. He uses chickens, which he will explain in our conversation, but also he comes from an experience that changed his life. He learned how to put what was most important first, and that's what he's hoping he can teach other people to do. After you listen, go get his book. He is fun to listen to, he's fun to talk to, and I think you're really going to be encouraged today. Thanks for being here. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. I know you had said that you would be traveling, but I guess you were traveling for a while or something before today.
I was in Orlando, then the Netherlands,
Oh, wow.
then Belgium, then Prague.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was the speaking, the what I lovingly called the spring speaking tour.
There you go. That's awesome. Those are some neat places to go, though.
Yeah. I'd never been to the Netherlands and I'd never been to Prague, so it was a
Wow.
nice experience.
Well, good. I loved reading about what you're doing because you're an author and a keynote speaker, but you talk about stress a lot. You must stay really busy having people to talk to because everybody's stressed.
Yeah.
Great job security.
And somebody said, well, you need to be very specific about what market you serve. I'm like, it's stress.
It's
Everybody.
everybody in the whole world you could speak to. So
Yes.
why this subject? Why stress?
Because I had a heart attack in 2015. And afterwards, the doctor said, you need to manage your stress. And I expected he'd say, well, less fat in your diet, less salt.
Right.
And they talked about all those things. But when I looked at it, I really wasn't terribly out of shape and terribly overweight. I had no family history. So,
Right.
yeah, you rule all those out, and it was stress.
Yeah.
So he made me promise that I would take a week off every 3 months. And I said
Wow.
I would. And my wife was in the room with me, which meant
Yeah.
it was
You
a
had to do it.
it's happening.
No question.
No questions asked. And I started doing that. And when I did that, I went on Facebook and posted, hey, here's the great things that happened today, the first day of our staycation.
Right.
And I talked about going to the zoo and having a picnic and so on. And everybody gave me likes. And
Yeah.
wow, I got likes on Facebook. Woo!
That's what we live for.
Exactly. So I did it the next day when we went to the art museum, and I did it all the whole week when I was off. And I started to wonder, well, how long could I keep this up?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is it'll be 9 years.
Wow.
Sorry, it's over 9 years. It'll be 10 years early next year.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So what were you doing? Were you traveling and speaking and writing when that
No.
happened, or were you doing what were you
No,
doing?
at the time I was working in the IT field.
Oh. Yeah, that's
Stress.
yes, I can see that.
Yeah, and I was not taking care of myself, and I was one of those people to see how close I could cut it to make it to the airport, all that
Right.
silly stuff that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And so I learned by finding what was good in life, it kind of lowered my stress.
Yeah.
And then I started studying it. Well, what else could I do to lower my stress? And then the next step is, how can I help others do the same?
Right.
Get the benefits without the heart attack.
Sure. So when you reached that point when the doctor told you you had to start doing this and you needed to manage it, what are some things that you didn't pay attention to besides being busy and being in a hurry and all that? What are some things maybe you didn't pay attention to that you should have?
My wife.
I
Okay,
understand.
so I decided, yeah, I do better at that now, I swear. I decided that I needed to lose a little bit of weight. I was getting ready to compete. Toastmasters has the annual World Championship of Public Speaking.
Wow.
And I had made the semifinals that year. So I was going
That's
around
awesome.
getting ready to compete. And I wasn't hugely overweight, but I needed to lose about 5 pounds or so to fit into my suit that I was going to speak in. And so I decided, I read this, that, you can skip breakfast and just go with bulletproof coffee. And what bulletproof coffee is a tablespoon of coconut oil, a tablespoon of butter, and coffee. And that was my breakfast, which is
Wow.
enough saturated fat to kill an elephant.
Right. Right.
And and my wife's like, that can't be good for you. I'm like, oh no, no, no. All the science. Well, the science was bogus. Uh,
Right.
I am very much anti bulletproof coffee.
Yeah.
And so I was doing that, and there was fast food because I was going all over. And I
Yeah.
didn't pay attention to that. And I also did not pay attention to the warning signals because
Yeah.
in the process of going to all the places where I was practicing, I ran into an old friend of mine. And I said, "Hey Tom, how you doing?" He goes, "Well, I'm recovering from a heart attack." I'm like, you're not a smoker like me,
Right.
and you're not hugely overweight. And so then he told me all of the things that happened up to the heart attack.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until the week of the heart attack, and I said, I started like working backwards and
Hmm.
saying, Tom said this, and I remember that happening, and Tom said this, and I remember that happening. And so I'm thinking, I probably need to get checked out by the doctor, but
Right.
next week is the semifinals in Las Vegas, and
Right.
the week after that, I've got a trip for work, so I'll get to it. Well, that
Hmm.
Thursday, I had the heart attack, so no semifinals, no work trip, just focus on
Wow.
recovery.
Yeah. Where were you when you had your heart attack? Were you at home with
I
people?
was I was at summer camp with my son,
Oh, wow.
which was about 45 minutes from home, and
Mm.
fortunately about 2 minutes from the hospital.
Oh, yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
I had had a bad week, and the hills were suddenly taller, and I was panting just going up the hills that I was able to climb the year before.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, on Thursday, we played this game called Hungry Human Hippos. So, hungry hippos.
Yes.
Well, you replace the little hippos with
Right.
humans on
Yeah.
casters, and
Yeah.
so we're going around
Yeah.
scraping softballs in this open room into a milk carton. I think they stopped doing it after I had the heart attack, but
Oh my
at the
gosh.
end, I was like, I feel terrible, and so I went to the
Yeah.
nurse, and my blood pressure had tanked, which is a sign of a heart attack.
Yeah.
And I called my wife first. I said, I feel terrible. And so she called back, and the nurse said, "Can I have your phone?" And so I handed it to her. She goes, "If it's my husband, I call 911. What do you want to do?"
Wow.
So excuse me, we called 911, went to the
Yeah.
hospital. They checked me out, and I had, in fact, had a heart attack.
Oh my goodness. It's amazing that you had that nurse and had people around and were so close to the hospital. It's so good.
Yes, all of
So
that.
in your recovery journey, you talk about the 3 L's of stress management. And I know the third one you don't post online. You have to sign up for your newsletter or something to find out what it is. But can
I'll,
you tell me
I'll,
the first two?
yeah. So it's love.
Yeah.
Love helps lower stress when you have, and it's your significant other, it's your children, it's really good friends, just sharing the love, being positive, supporting each other. I really think that helps a lot.
Yeah.
The second one is laughter, and you just have to laugh.
Yeah.
And the more I laugh, and when I give keynotes, I used to say, oh well, I can put something funny, a funny slide in there if it's connected to the material. Now
Yeah.
I just say, look, one of the things we need to do to fight stress is laugh. So there are
Yeah.
going to be random funny pictures in here. We're all going to laugh, and that's the point.
Yes.
So laughter is huge.
Yeah.
How whatever you find funny. I don't find like really inappropriate stuff funny, but whatever you find funny. There's some stand-up comics. We still watch old sitcoms on
Yeah.
TV. We worked our way through Night Court a
Yeah.
few months
That was
ago.
a great one.
I still watch Hogan's Heroes. Um,
Yeah.
just the point is to laugh. And then
Right.
the third one is listening.
Yeah.
Actively listening, using your emotional intelligence to really listen to the other person and
Yeah.
understand what they were saying. And that was the one I had to work on the most.
Right. It's hard. We're all in such a hurry that we don't want to take the time to listen. I'm guilty of that myself. My husband laughs at me because I am. He, to me, takes forever to do some things and it drives me crazy. But what, why? Why do I need to hurry? What is the point? There is no point to be like that. So that's good. Laughter, I've said, I love laughter. And if you put me in a crowd of people, I am going to gravitate to those people that make me laugh. Like that's just what I love being around. So it is important. It's very important.
Yep. Yeah. We were made to laugh, I think.
Absolutely. So one of the things that you do and you use in your talk, or you talk about chickens. Chickens are a big deal. So tell me about the chickens that we carry inside of us. Everybody has them. There you go, right there.
I have them. Yeah. I actually have different colored chickens now.
Oh,
I've
wow.
really upped my chicken game.
Yes, you have.
So the chickens are they can stress you out. I call them like fear,
Hmm.
negativity, self-doubt. The world can be tough enough with all the negativity out there. What you don't
Right.
need is those things inside your head going, you're not good enough. Don't try this. You need to stop taking chances. Just sit in your comfort zone and don't do anything. I think it originally, way, way, way back when, came from a good place because you didn't want to like venture out of the cave and get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger or whatever.
Right.
But now I think a lot of times those voices inside your head really hold you back.
Hmm.
And so I tell people you need to fry them, and then we
There you go.
throw them. I toss them to the members of the audience. It's actually my business card, so you got the little
Oh,
QR
awesome.
code
That's
on it. It takes you
great.
to my website.
Yeah.
Um, and so I tell them there's one chicken you need to be afraid of, and
The big
it's the
chicken.
great big one. I call him the red rooster of regret. So
Ah,
it's if you don't try something, if an opportunity comes and you really want to do it, didn't want to have him fall.
right.
If you really want to take advantage of it, but you're letting these little chickens hold you back, ultimately you're
Mhm.
going to come face to face with regrets.
Right.
And so I talk about being scared to ask, ultimately my wife, a friend out on a date, and
Right.
all the chickens inside of me. And I realized if I didn't do this, I could have a lifetime of regrets. And so I
Yeah.
took a chance, asked for a date, and it'll be 35 years. We've been married this year. So
That's awesome. We're 33. We're right behind you, but that's
awesome.
awesome. I love that.
Congratulations.
I laughed when I read you were talking about those things that the chickens that you got past and how the roller coaster, you said that you wanted to be, I forgot how you worded it. You want to be brave for 20 minutes or 2 minutes, but you didn't realize or not
Yeah.
throw up. That's what it was. Not get sick for 2 minutes, but the ride was 2 minutes and 20 seconds.
Yeah. Okay,
I
that's
was
that's
cracking up.
more that's more a joke. I didn't really throw up on the
Right.
roller coaster. Now, I will tell you, it was at Cedar Point, and I
Mhm.
went with my son, and of course, once you start going down the hills, the chickens are just like the whole time. What do you think?
Right.
At the very end, when I was feeling a little bit stomach upset,
Yeah.
I looked at him, and he was just smiling, and he had such a great time. I
Yeah.
said, "That's why you move out of your comfort zone.
Right.
It's to have these great experiences."
Right.
And and everybody's comfort zone is different, right? You
Yeah.
will not see me jumping out of an airplane with a parachute.
Right.
Some people love that. That's
Yeah.
fine. Yeah,
Not me.
but I have a little bit narrower comfort zone. But
Yes.
I I've gotten to travel to Europe multiple times to speak. That's a little out of the comfort zone, but every time I'm like, man, am I glad I did this. I get to meet
Right.
new people, see new cultures. It's been such a great experience. And life happens outside of the comfort zone.
It does, definitely. I am definitely someone who is hesitant to step out of my comfort zone. And sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's not so funny. But when I was reading about your stuff, I thought, I really do need to work on this. This is something I need to work on. In your book, you talk about frying your chickens. What is something that somebody could implement immediately that's in your book that you talk about?
So, real quick.
That book right there. There you go.
Woohoo!
Frying your chickens.
Something you could immediately, well, there's 7 different strategies. So, it could be decide one thing that you're going to step out of your comfort zone and do. Just
Yeah.
like that. Each one of them, it's a story and then some science behind it, and then the steps you can take.
Yeah.
So, and it's up to each person, but just something simple. One of the ones I like is I call it share the love. And so just send somebody a note. It,
Yeah.
and it can be a text. It
Right.
can be something you do in less than a minute. Send them a Facebook message. Hey, I really appreciate you for this. It,
Right.
you can write them a letter, write them a thank you note, just something to share the love. We're all in this together, and you see so much stress being shared back and forth and negativity sometimes. Just share
Yeah.
something positive with somebody. That's my favorite one. They're all in there. Some of them are easier than getting up the courage to ask out somebody and have
Right.
chickens in your head. But that's an easy one.
Yeah. I know one of the things you talked about was how much money businesses lose every year on, their employees dealing with stress. What is something a business or a leader could do to manage that or to reduce that?
So yeah, the number you can see numbers all over, and I believe it's billions and billions.
Oh,
I have
yeah.
no problem believing that because my heart attack was rated a small heart attack. They got this scale. It goes
Yeah.
from small to dead, I guess. But it was for me a big event that just required a couple of stents, but just in terms of the medical bills and the lost time, and I was back to work full time about 3.5 months later. But
Yeah.
just the medical bills and the lost time and the project we had to cancel was over $100,000, and that's a
Wow.
small heart attack.
Wow.
And there are, and that doesn't count stress like I need to take a day off. I am stressed, so I'm only showing up half power at work. It,
Yeah.
but when it does come into a medical problem, the numbers are huge. And
Yeah.
so the question that wasn't your question. The question was, what can leaders do?
Yeah.
The very first thing they can do is model the low stress behavior.
There you go.
Lower their stress, and you lead by being an example. And that's what I
Right.
tell people. If you want to lower the stress of your team, you need to lower your stress
Right.
and demonstrate that. Actions speak louder than words.
Right. That's hard to do sometimes when you're, the boss is getting pressured from their boss and but I agree with you. The way you handle it, at least, or manage it makes a difference. What is
Yes.
something, because we talked about how everybody is stressed, everybody's got stresses of some forms. What about the people who are doing like you were doing, just pushing through, getting to it? I'll get to that later. What is something that you could suggest somebody does when they're, instead of doing that, what else could they do?
First thing that popped into my mind was start saying no.
Yeah.
It, eh, you can't say yes to everything. That was my problem. Oh, I don't want to
Yeah.
disappoint anybody. I'm going to say yes to everything. Set some priorities. What is your purpose in life? The Gary V is a motivational speaker, and somebody asked him, "What? Tell me something that is going to motivate me." And he said, "You are going to die.
Wow.
You only have so much time." And
Right.
and that's what I came face to face with. We all know that, right? We all know that the one condition that is 100% fatal is being born. Eventually, you're going to die. But
Right.
we know that intellectually, but we don't act like we know that.
Yeah.
And that's what I came face to face with at that heart attack. The, they said you had a heart attack, and we're going to need to go in and figure out what's going wrong, which
Yeah.
is, I knew they had to do that, but then I'm thinking, well, it could be something really serious. And so
Yeah.
I'm in the hospital room with two of my sons and my wife, and I'm thinking, how much time do I have with these people I love? And,
Right.
and why am I spending it in non-productive ways?
Yeah.
And so I said no to things at work, and I focused on what was important from then until now. And it
Yeah.
turns out that the world didn't come to an end because I said no to some things. I was as shocked as anybody. Right? So say no to what's not that important,
Yeah.
because again, it's back to this guy. You don't want to regret
Right.
not spending time with your family because you were on things that were really not, they
Yeah.
weren't what you wanted.
Right. You'll regret the things that you don't do more than trying and failing or whatever, spending that time with whoever. And that all of that is so important. And
Absolutely.
yeah, regrets stink. I don't like them.
No, no.
We all have them, but I don't like them.
No,
So,
you got it exactly right. You
yeah,
regret the things you didn't at least try.
right. One of the things that was very cool that I read about you was that you won $32,000 on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Who was the host when you did that?
Meredith Vieira.
Wow. How did you get there? How did you get to that point?
So I watched the very first episode. It was Regis Philbin back in the
Yeah.
day, and they said there's an 800 number to call to be a contestant. So I
Yeah.
tried calling, and I called every single night, and I watched every single episode, and
Right.
it basically became a full blown obsession. I said
Wow.
and so I never made it there. So I started auditioning,
Oh,
and I
wow.
auditioned in Chicago and failed, and I auditioned in Indianapolis and failed, and then in between Indianapolis and the next audition, I said, if I had gotten on that show, you better believe I'd be bragging online on what I did to get on the show. So I started
Right.
looking, and I
Yeah.
found two tricks on
Oh,
ways
wow.
to pass the audition. So they give you a test, and the
Yeah.
first test is questions that had already been on the show. So I had watched all the shows.
Right.
I was able to get those whether I knew them or not. I had seen it.
Yeah.
The second thing is they give you like a short answer test and
Uh-huh.
a number two pencil, and you fill that out, and then you interview with an associate producer.
Oh, wow.
I learned two things. Number one, you don't have to use the number two pencil. So I sat down in Cleveland, which was my third audition, with a
Mhm.
highlighter and a red felt tip marker and a 4-color pen, and you name it. And so I colored it all up because I wanted to draw the associate producer's eyes to a couple of key stories.
Right.
That was the other thing. Find the stories that they can see you sharing with Meredith Vieira in between the questions. And so I had one
That's awesome.
highlighted in red about
Yeah.
my son watching with me. He was 5 years old. He was watching Regis, and he kept talking about hot seat, hot seat, hot seat. My son said, "Daddy, how hot do they make that hot seat?" And that was what got me on the show.
That's awesome. That is awesome. What an experience.
Yeah,
Very cool.
yeah.
So, if somebody's listening today and maybe they haven't heard you as a keynote speaker, what is something you would want them to remember about your advice and what you talk about?
I want you to remember, number one, you're going to regret the things you didn't do.
Yeah.
You don't want to have those regrets at the end of your life. And number two, we only have so much time on this planet. Make the
Mhm.
most of it.
Yeah.
Fry those chickens that are saying, "Oh, just sit down and binge watch. Just don't take a chance. You won't have fun," because you would take the chance, and you probably will have fun, and you won't have regrets.
Yeah,
Go for it.
definitely. That's so good. So what's your favorite thing about what you're doing? Is meeting the people? Is it just being able to share what you've learned or
So
the
many.
traveling,
It's
the beautiful places?
well, as my wife and I said when we went through a flight delay going over to Europe, it's they say life's a journey, not a destination. When you're traveling, it's the destination, not
Right.
the journey. Sorry, but it is.
Right.
But we got there.
Yeah.
It's seeing new cultures. It's meeting the people. I am one of those weird people who likes to speak in public. I know a lot of
Yeah.
people don't. I enjoy that. I enjoy bringing people up on stage and having them share their big, bold, brilliant ideas. Uh, I don't know that I have one favorite. I
Yeah.
do. It's the people.
The
It's
people.
the people.
Yeah.
In all forms. During there, afterwards, having a coffee with somebody. It's the people.
Yeah. I believe that. I believe that. Have you gotten a lot of feedback from people?
My favorite one just was from I spoke in Prague last week, and the guy who brought me in sent me a note. He goes, "As we would say in Czechoslovakian or in the Czech language, you blew my shoes off," or something. It's like knocked my socks off, but
That's funny.
you blew my shoes off or something. And I was like, and when he sent me that, I said, "Can I please put that quote on my website?" He goes, "Oh
Right.
yeah." He
That's
said,
great.
"Did I say it right?" I was like, "You sure did."
That's awesome. Is there anything I haven't asked you about that you'd like to talk about?
No, I think this was just a wonderful conversation.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you so much being a guest. I love what you're doing. Like I said, you have great job security because everybody's stressed. Everybody needs to be reminded of these things. Even when we know them, we need to be reminded to slow down, listen, and definitely laugh. Laughter is so important.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. You have a
Enjoy
great
your day. All right,
You
you
as
too.
well.
Bye-bye.
Bye.